She never knew what it felt like to have a family until life gave her an unexpected chance to start over. A cold, lonely man crossed her path and, without meaning to, changed everything. Fate brought them together through a tiny baby and a past filled with pain and resilience. When they finally accepted their feelings, an unexpected request changed their lives forever. Before you dive into this heartfelt story, don't forget to like and share so more people can be inspired by this tale of love and hope. The sun had barely risen when Sophia opened her eyes, her heart pounding with anticipation for the day ahead. At 18, she would finally leave St. Clair's home, the orphanage that had been her only home for as long as she could remember. With trembling hands, she packed her small backpack with her few belongings, some clothes, a worn-out notebook, and a faded photograph of a woman she imagined was her mother. The hallway of the orphanage was silent as Sophia walked through it, for the last time. Each step echoed, heavy with memories and unfulfilled dreams. When she reached the front door, she found Sister Grace, the nun who had come closest to a mother figure in her life. "Are you ready, my dear?" the sister asked, her kind face lined with worry. Sophia nodded, unable to find the words. The nun hugged her tightly, whispering a blessing in her ear. "Remember, Sophia, you will always have a place here, but it's time for you to carve your own path." With one last look at the place that had been both her refuge and her prison, Sophia stepped through the orphanage gates. The world outside was vast and frightening, but also full of possibilities. Her footsteps led her to the nearest bus station, where she boarded a bus headed for downtown Chicago. The next few hours passed in a blur of bustling streets, towering buildings, and unfamiliar faces. Sophia wandered the city, her wide eyes trying to take in everything around her. The reality of her situation began to weigh on her shoulders. She was alone, with no money, and nowhere to stay. As night began to fall, despair threatened to consume her. Then she spotted a small sign in the window of a diner. "Help wanted." With a racing heart, Sophia pushed open the door of the establishment. Aroma Cafe was a cozy place, with dark wooden tables and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Behind the counter, a gray-haired man with kind eyes watched her. "Can I help you, young lady?" he asked, his voice rough but gentle. Sophia took a deep breath, gathering all her courage. "I saw the sign in the window. I'm looking for a job." The man who introduced himself as John, the cafe owner, studied her for a moment. "Any experience?" "No, sir," Sophia answered honestly. "But I learn fast, and I'm willing to work hard." Something in the young woman's determined gaze seemed to touch the old merchant's heart. After a brief pause, he nodded. "All right, you can start tomorrow, but I warn you, the work is hard." The relief Sophia felt was almost palpable. With a job secured, she managed to rent a small room in the back of a nearby boarding house. The space was tiny, and the bed creaked with every move, but to Sophia, it was the beginning of a new life. The days that followed were a whirlwind of new experiences. Sophia learned to operate the coffee machine, to serve customers with a smile, even when her feet ached after hours on her feet, and to navigate the frantic rhythm of Monday mornings when hurried executives flooded the cafe in search of their caffeine fix. Among the faces that became familiar was Luke, a young lawyer who worked at a nearby firm. Tall, with captivating green eyes and a smile that seemed to light up the whole room, he quickly became Sophia's favorite customer. "Good morning, Sophia." His cheerful voice greeted her every morning. "The usual, please." Sophia felt her heart race every time she saw him walk through the door. There was something about Luke, a contagious energy, that made her want to smile all day. Weeks turned into months, and Sophia began to feel for the first time in her life that she was building something of her own. The work at the cafe, though exhausting, gave her a sense of purpose. The smiles of regular customers, the casual conversations with John, and of course the stolen moments with Luke, filled her days with a joy she had never imagined possible. One night, as she closed the cafe, Sophia caught herself humming a soft melody. John, who was tallying the day's earnings, looked up with a smile. "You happy, girl?" Sophia paused for a moment, considering the question. "I think so, John. For the first time, I feel like I'm on the right path." The old man nodded, his eyes gleaming with something that looked like pride. "You deserve it, Sophia. You deserve all the happiness in the world." That night, lying in her small bed at the boarding house, Sophia allowed herself to dream of the future. A future where she would no longer be the orphanage girl, but a strong, independent woman. A future where perhaps Luke's smile could be a more permanent part of her life. Little did she know, fate had plans far greater and more surprising than she could ever imagine. Sophia's life was about to take an exciting turn, bringing unexpected joys and challenges that would test her strength and determination like never before. As sleep enveloped her, a soft smile played on her lips. Tomorrow would be a new day, full of possibilities, and Sophia was ready to embrace each one. The months passed, and Sophia's routine at Aroma Cafe became an unexpected comfort. The busy mornings, the scent of fresh coffee and conversations with the regular customers filled her days with a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. Among all the familiar faces that frequented the cafe, one in particular made Sophia's heart beat faster. Luke, the young lawyer with his expressive green eyes and captivating smile, had become a constant in her thoughts. On a sunny spring morning, Luke arrived earlier than usual. The cafe was practically empty, and Sophia seized the opportunity to chat a little longer. "Good morning, Luke. You're up early today, huh?" she remarked as she served his usual coffee. Luke smiled, running a hand through his dark hair in a gesture Sophia found irresistible. "Yeah, I have an important hearing today. Thought I'd come early to calm my nerves a bit." "Nervous?" Sophia asked, leaning slightly over the counter. "A little," he admitted, "but your coffee always helps me focus." Their eyes met for a moment, and Sophia felt warmth rise up her neck. There was something different in the air, a palpable tension that made her heart race. "You know, Sophia," Luke began, his voice slightly hesitant, "I was thinking, would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" The question caught Sophia by surprise. For a moment, she was speechless, her face lighting up with a radiant smile. "I'd love to, Luke." The rest of the day passed in a blur of excitement and anticipation. Sophia could hardly believe she was finally going on a date with Luke. It was as if all her dreams were starting to come true. On the night of the date, Sophia dressed carefully in her small room at the boarding house. She chose a simple but pretty dress bought with her savings. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized the confident young woman staring back at her. Luke took her to a charming restaurant in the heart of the city. The conversation flowed naturally, and Sophia found herself laughing and sharing stories like never before. For the first time, she felt truly comfortable talking about her past in the orphanage, her hopes and her fears. "You're amazing, Sophia," Luke said, holding her hand across the table. "To go through all that and still be so positive and determined. I really admire you." Sophia's heart swelled with an emotion she'd never felt before. It was more than attraction, more than just liking someone. She was falling in love, and the intensity of that feeling both terrified and exhilarated her. In the weeks that followed, Sophia and Luke became inseparable. Park strolls, movie nights, long conversations at the cafe after work. Every moment together felt magical, as if the whole world had disappeared and only the two of them existed. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through the square, Luke suddenly stopped. Turning to Sophia, his eyes gleaming under the moonlight, he spoke the words she had longed to hear. "Sophia, I love you. I know it might seem soon, but I've never been so sure of anything in my life." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. "I love you too, Luke," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. The kiss that followed was tender and passionate, sealing a silent promise of a future together. Sophia felt as if she had finally found her place in the world, in Luke's arms. The following months were a whirlwind of happiness. Sophia thrived at work. Her relationship with Luke deepened, and for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to dream of a bright future. Then, on a quiet afternoon at the cafe, the news came, changing everything. Luke walked in, his face a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Sophia, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice serious. I've been invited to an exchange program in New York. It's an incredible opportunity for my career, but it would mean 6 months away from you." Sophia's world seemed to freeze. 6 months, half a year without seeing Luke, without feeling his touch, his kiss. The thought terrified her. When would you leave?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "In 3 weeks, Luke replied, his eyes searching hers. "Sophia, I want you to come with me. We can start a new life there together." The proposal caught her off guard. Move to New York? Leave behind everything she had built here? The cafe, her John, the life that was finally starting to make sense? I don't know, Luke," she stammered. "It's a lot to process." Luke nodded, understanding. "I get it. Take your time. We still have some left." But time seemed to be running against them. The 3 weeks flew by, and Sophia found herself torn between her love for Luke and her fear of the unknown. The thought of leaving America, the only place she knew, terrified her. But the idea of being without Luke for so long was just as frightening. On the eve of Luke's departure, Sophia still hadn't made a decision. Her heart was divided, torn between the desire to follow Luke and the fear of abandoning the security she had worked so hard to achieve. As she closed the cafe that night, her hands trembled slightly. Tomorrow, she would have to give Luke an answer. Tomorrow, her life would change forever, one way or another. Sophia looked around Aroma Cafe, the place that had become her home over the past few months. Memories of laughter, tears, and precious moments with Luke flooded her mind. She knew the choice she made would shape not only her future, but also her heart. With a deep sigh, Sophia turned off the cafe lights. Tomorrow would bring a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. And for the first time since leaving the orphanage, she felt truly lost. Dawn brought a mix of anxiety and anticipation for Sophia. She had barely slept, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. The decision she had to make weighed on her shoulders like an invisible anchor. When she arrived at Aroma Cafe for her morning shift, Sophia found her John already behind the counter, preparing the first batch of coffee for the day. The old owner immediately noticed the troubled look on his young employee's face. "What's wrong, kid?" he asked, his voice heavy with paternal concern. "It seems like you're carrying the world on your shoulders." Sophia hesitated for a moment before opening up. She told her John about Luke's invitation, about the opportunity in New York, and about the fear she felt of leaving behind everything she had worked for. The old man listened carefully, his wise eyes studying Sophia's face. When she finished, he let out a deep sigh. "Sophia, my dear, life sometimes puts us in front of difficult choices. There's no right or wrong decision in these moments. What matters is listening to your heart and having the courage to follow the path it shows you." Her John's words resonated with Sophia, bringing a little clarity to the confusion in her. "Thoughts?" She nodded, grateful for the advice, and began her workday, knowing that in the next few hours her fate would be sealed. The cafe was particularly busy that morning, as if the universe was conspiring to keep Sophia occupied and stop her from overthinking. Between coffee orders, smiles for regular customers, and the hectic routine of the place, the hours flew by. It was mid-afternoon when the cafe door opened, revealing Luke. He looked anxious, his green eyes immediately searching for Sophia's. She felt her heart race, a mix of love and apprehension taking hold of her. "Can we talk?" Luke asked softly, stepping up to the counter. Sophia nodded, glancing at her John, who gave her an understanding nod. "Go on, girl. I'll handle things here." The two stepped out of the cafe, walking side by side in silence for a few minutes. It was Luke who finally broke the quiet. "So, have you thought about what we talked about?" Sophia took a deep breath, gathering the courage for the words she needed to say. "Yes, Luke, I've thought a lot, and I can't go with you." Luke's expression twisted into a mix of disappointment and understanding. "I see," he murmured. "Can I ask why?" "Luke, I love you. Truly, but this is my life here. The cafe, Mr. John, the town. For the first time, I feel like I have a place where I belong. I can't just leave it all behind." Luke nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. I understand, Sophia, truly. Part of me wanted you to say yes, to drop everything and come with me, but the other part admires your strength and determination even more. They stopped walking, turning to face each other. Sophia felt tears stream down her cheeks as Luke held her hands. 6 months, he said softly. It's not so long, is it? We can make long-distance work. I'll come back for holidays. We'll talk every day. Sophia nodded, wanting to believe his words. Yes, we can try. The kiss that followed was bittersweet, filled with love, hope, and a tinge of sadness. When they pulled apart, they both knew something had changed, even if they couldn't quite define what. The days that followed passed in a blur. Luke's departure was emotional, with promises of daily calls and a triumphant return in 6 months. Sophia threw herself into work, seeking escape from the longing she already felt in the cafe's routine. The first weeks were hard. Luke's calls and messages were frequent, but they couldn't replace his physical presence. Sophia caught herself staring at the cafe door, expecting to see him walk in with his trademark smile, only to remember he was on the other side of the ocean. It was during this time that Sophia began noticing subtle changes in herself. Without Luke around, she found herself more independent, more focused on her own goals and dreams. She started making plans for the future, considering the possibility of taking night classes, or maybe even opening her own business someday. Time passed, and little by little, the pain of separation turned into a bearable longing. Calls with Luke, though still frequent, began to space out. The time difference and their increasingly busy schedules made communication more challenging. Then, on a quiet afternoon at the cafe, nearly 4 months after Luke's departure, something unexpected happened. A new customer walked in, immediately catching Sophia's attention. Tall, with deep brown eyes and a gentle smile, he introduced himself as Michael. "A cappuccino, please," he ordered, his melodious voice sending an unexpected shiver down Sophia's spine. As she prepared his order, Sophia found herself talking to Michael with an ease that surprised her. She discovered he was a local musician, playing in bars and restaurants around the area. There was something about his presence that made her feel light, almost like in the early days with Luke. The days that followed, Michael became a regular at the cafe. His visits brought an unexpected joy to Sophia's days, filling a void she hadn't known existed. Their conversations flowed naturally, filled with laughter and exchanged glances that made her heart race. One night, after her shift, Michael invited her to watch one of his performances at a nearby bar. Sophia hesitated for a moment, thinking of Luke, but ultimately accepted. Michael's music was captivating, his smooth voice touching something deep within her. As she watched him, on stage, Sophia found herself facing a dilemma she had never imagined. Her feelings for Luke were still strong, but the connection she was developing with Michael was undeniable. Guilt and confusion swirled in her chest, creating a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. By the end of the night, walking home under Chicago's starry sky, Sophia realized she was at another crossroads. The future, which once seemed so certain with Luke, now opened up to unexpected possibilities. Lying in bed that night, Sophia stared at the ceiling, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Luke, the man who first touched her heart, was miles away, chasing his dreams, and here, so close, was Michael, a new and unexpected source of joy in her life. The soft chime of an incoming message pulled her from her thoughts. It was Luke sending a simple, "Good night, I miss you." Sophia felt her heart tighten. With a deep sigh, she closed her eyes, knowing the coming days would bring difficult decisions. The path ahead was uncertain, full of twists she could never have predicted. But one thing was certain. Sophia was no longer the insecure girl who had left the orphanage so many months ago. Whatever decision she made, she would face the consequences with the strength and determination she had discovered within herself. The future was a mystery, but for the first time, Sophia felt ready to embrace it, with all its surprises and challenges. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Sophia. Each morning brought a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Luke's morning messages, once so eagerly awaited, now came with a pang of guilt. On the other hand, the prospect of seeing Michael at the cafe made her heart race in a way she hadn't expected to feel again. One particularly busy afternoon at a Roma cafe, Sophia found herself torn between attending to customers and her phone, which buzzed insistently with messages from Luke. He spoke about his plans to return soon, about how he could hardly wait to see her. Every word felt like a tiny needle in her conflicted heart. "Are you okay, Sophia?" John's voice brought her back to reality. The old cafe owner watched her, with a mix of concern and understanding. I don't know, John," Sophia admitted, feeling the weight of her tangled emotions. "I'm so confused." John gently guided her to the back of the cafe, away from the curious ears of customers. "This is about Luke and that new guy, isn't it? Michael, if I'm not mistaken." Sophia nodded, surprised by the old man's insight. "How did you—" "Ah, my dear," he smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "When you reach my age, you learn to read people, especially those who are like daughters to you." John's words touched Sophia deeply. Tears welled in her eyes as she poured out her heart, confessing her conflicting feelings, her fear of hurting Luke, and the guilt she felt for developing feelings for Michael. "Sophia," John said softly after listening, "the heart is a mystery. Even time can't fully unravel. Don't blame yourself for feeling. What matters is being honest, especially with yourself. But what if I'm making a mistake? What if losing Luke is the worst decision of my life? What if it isn't?" John countered. "Life is made of risks, my dear. Sometimes the biggest mistake is not taking one for fear of making the wrong choice." The old man's words resonated with Sophia, bringing an unexpected clarity. She thanked John with a tight hug and returned to work, her mind a little lighter, though still full of doubts. That night, Michael showed up at the cafe just before closing. His warm smile lit up Sophia's face, and she felt her heart skip a beat. "Hey," he said softly, stepping up to the counter. "Thought I'd stop by to see if you'd like to take a walk. The sky is beautiful tonight." Sophia hesitated for a moment, thinking about Luke's messages on her phone. But something inside her pushed her to accept the invitation. "Of course, just give me a minute to wrap things up." They walked side by side through the illuminated streets of Chicago, the night breeze bringing a welcome relief after a hot day. The conversation flowed naturally between them, punctuated by laughter and lingering glances. They arrived at a small square, where Michael suggested they sit on a bench. The silence that followed was heavy with anticipation. "Sophia," Michael began, his voice soft, "I know you're with someone, and I know I probably shouldn't say this, but I can't stop thinking about you." Sophia's heart raced. She knew this moment would come, yet she still wasn't prepared for the intensity of the emotions that overwhelmed her. "Michael, she started, but the words escaped her. He leaned in slowly, his eyes locked on hers. "I'll understand if you don't feel the same, but I needed you to know." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Michael leaned in, his lips meeting Sophia's in a gentle, almost hesitant kiss. For a moment she let herself get lost in the sensation, her body responding with an intensity that surprised her. But then, like lightning splitting the sky, the image of Luke flashed in her mind. Sophia pulled away abruptly, her heart pounding wildly. I can't," she murmured, standing up from the bench. "I'm sorry, Michael. I have to go." Without waiting for a response, Sophia turned and walked away quickly, leaving a confused and hurt Michael behind. Tears streamed freely down her face as she crossed the dark streets, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. When she got home, Sophia collapsed onto her bed, letting the sobs she'd held back during the walk finally break free. Her phone buzzed, and she saw a new message from Luke. "Counting the days until I see you, I love you." Guilt consumed her. How could she have let this happen? How could she have betrayed Luke's trust, even for a brief moment? The hours that followed were filled with deep reflection. Sophia found herself at a crossroads that would change the course of her life forever. On one side there was Luke, her first love, the man who made her believe she deserved to be loved. On the other, Michael, an unexpected connection that stirred, feelings she didn't know she still had. As the sun began to rise, painting Chicago's sky with shades of pink and orange, Sophia reached a decision. It wouldn't be easy, and it would certainly cause pain. But she knew it was the only honest path forward. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone and typed a message to Luke. "We need to talk. It's important." Sending the message, Sophia felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders, only to be replaced by another just as heavy. The future was uncertain, but she knew she would face whatever came with courage and honesty. Standing up, Sophia prepared for another day at Aroma Cafe. Today would be different. Today, she would begin writing a new chapter of her story. No matter the consequences. As she walked to work, the rising sun lit up her face as if the universe were giving her strength for the challenges ahead. Sophia took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and determination. The day that would change. Everything had arrived, and she was ready to face it. Aroma Cafe was strangely quiet that morning. Sophia moved behind the counter like an automaton, her mind distant, replaying the events of the night before and anticipating the difficult conversation she would have with Luke. John watched his young employee with obvious concern. "Sophia," he called softly, "you look like you're carrying the weight of the world today. Do you want to talk?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before nodding. In the back of the cafe, away from the curious eyes of customers, she poured her heart out, confessing the kiss with Michael and the message she had sent to Luke. John listened carefully, his face a mask of understanding and worry. When Sophia finished, he sighed deeply. "My dear, honesty is always the best path, no matter how painful. You're doing the right thing." The old man's words brought Sophia a small measure of comfort, but the anxiety lingered. The day dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. When her shift finally ended, Sophia checked her phone for the 1,000th time. ID message from Luke was waiting. "I'll be at the cafe in an hour. I also have something to tell you." Sophia's heart raced. What could Luke possibly want to tell her? 1,000 scenarios flashed through her mind as she waited, seated at one of the tables in the now empty cafe. When the door opened, revealing Luke, Sophia felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. He looked different somehow, thinner maybe, with dark circles under his eyes she didn't remember seeing before. "Hi," he said softly, stepping closer. "Hi," Sophia replied, her voice barely a whisper. They sat down, a heavy silence hanging between them. It was Luke who finally broke the ice. "Sophia, something happened in New York. Something that changed everything." Sophia's heart froze. Before she could stop herself, the words spilled out. "I kissed someone else." Luke blinked, startled by the sudden confession. "Oh," was all he managed to say at first. Sophia, unable to hold back her tears, continued, "I'm so sorry, Luke. I didn't plan it, I swear. It's just, things changed. I changed." Luke nodded slowly, a sad smile forming on his lips. "Funny how life works," he murmured. "I came here to tell you that, well, I also got involved with someone else in New York." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia and Luke stared at each other, a mix of shock, relief, and sadness in their eyes. "I guess we both knew somehow that this could happen," Luke finally said. "The distance, the changes, maybe it was inevitable." Sophia nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "I still care about you, Luke, so much, but it's not the same anymore," he finished. "I get it. I feel the same way." They talked for hours, pouring out their hearts about the past few months, the changes they had experienced, and the new feelings that had emerged. There was pain, yes, but also a mutual understanding, a respect for each other's growth. When they finally said goodbye, it was already night. A long, tight hug sealed the end of one chapter in their lives, but also the beginning of something new. A friendship built on honesty and understanding. Sophia walked home, her emotions in turmoil. She felt sad about the end of her relationship with Luke, but also relieved and, in a way, free. Now a new question lingered in her mind. What should she do about Michael? The days that followed were ones of introspection for Sophia. She avoided Michael, needing time to process everything that had happened. John, always there for her, offered words of comfort and wisdom in the difficult moments. It was on a quiet afternoon, nearly 2 weeks after her conversation with Luke, that Michael showed up at the cafe. His face was serious, almost resigned. "Sophia," he began, "I understand if you don't want to see me anymore. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened. I never meant to complicate your life." Sophia studied him for a moment, feeling her heart race. In that instant she made a decision. "Michael," she said softly, "Luke and I broke up, not because of you, but because we both realized we had changed, and I'd like to explore what's between us, if you're still interested." Michael's face lit up with a smile that made Sophia's heart melt. "I'd love that," he replied. In the months that followed, Sophia and Michael slowly built a relationship. Unlike the overwhelming passion she had experienced with Luke, this was something calmer, more mature. They shared dreams, fears, and hopes, growing together day by day. Aroma Cafe remained the backdrop for much of their story. Sophia, now promoted to manager by John, began dreaming of one day owning her own business. Michael, meanwhile, saw his music career take off, with increasingly frequent performances at bars and events around the city. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through the same park where they had shared their first kiss, Sophia realized just how much her life had changed. From an insecure orphan to a strong, independent woman, she had found not only love, but also herself. "What are you thinking about?" Michael asked, noticing her distant gaze. Sophia smiled, squeezing his hand. "How unpredictable life is. How sometimes we need to lose ourselves to find ourselves." Michael nodded, pulling her closer. "And how sometimes we find exactly what we need when we least expect it." As they kissed under the stars of Chicago, Sophia felt a deep gratitude for her John, for Luke, for Michael, and for all the experiences that had shaped her. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life she faced it not with fear, but with anticipation and courage. Sophia's journey was far from over. New challenges and adventures awaited her, but now, with a heart full of love and determination, she was ready to embrace every moment, every surprise life had in store. Time flew by for Sophia. Days at Aroma Cafe, blended with nights of music by Michael's side, creating a routine she had never imagined she'd have. Her relationship with Michael flourished, built on mutual understanding and unconditional support. One particularly busy morning at the cafe, Sophia noticed her John watching her with a thoughtful look. When the last rush-hour customer left, he called her to the back of the shop. "Sophia, my dear," the old man began, his voice heavy with emotion, "do you remember when you first arrived here, a frightened girl searching for her place in the world?" Sophia nodded, feeling a lump in her throat as she recalled those early days. "Look at you now," her John continued, his eyes shining with pride. "A strong, capable woman with a bright future ahead. That's why I've made a decision." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "I'm getting old, Sophia, and I have no children to leave this place to. You've become the daughter I never had, and I want Aroma Cafe to be yours." Sophia was speechless, her eyes filling with tears. "John, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take care of this place with the same love I've given it all these years," he replied, smiling, "and that you'll keep serving the best coffee in Chicago." They embraced for a long time, their tears mingling. For Sophia, it was more than inheriting a business. It was receiving a legacy, a testament of trust and love she never expected to have. In the months that followed, Sophia threw herself into managing the cafe. With the patient guidance of her John, she learned the ins and outs of the business, from bookkeeping to the art of roasting coffee beans. Michael was by her side every step of the way, offering support and ideas to modernize the establishment. One evening, as they closed the cafe together, Michael surprised Sophia with a proposal. "What if we combined our passions?" he suggested, his eyes shining with excitement. We could turn Aroma Cafe into a cafe concert on Friday and Saturday nights. Imagine, great music, the best coffee in town, and a cozy atmosphere. The idea sparked something in Sophia. She had always dreamed of expanding the business, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. With John's enthusiastic blessing, they began planning the transformation. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Sophia and Michael worked tirelessly to renovate the space, creating a small stage in one corner of the cafe and improving the acoustics. Posters advertising the music nights were spread throughout the neighborhood, and anticipation grew with each passing day. On opening night, Aroma Cafe was unrecognizable. Soft lights created a warm ambiance, intimate tables were strategically arranged, and the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the excitement in the air. Michael kicked off the evening with a moving performance, his voice filling the space with melodies about love, dreams, and overcoming challenges. Sophia watched from the entrance, her heart overflowing with pride and love. The success was immediate. Aroma Cafe quickly became the go-to spot for music and coffee lovers in the area. Sophia saw the business thrive like never before, attracting a diverse and passionate clientele. But with success came new challenges. The long hours began to take their toll, and Sophia found herself torn between managing the cafe and her relationship with Michael. Nights were spent crunching numbers and planning menus, while moments alone with Michael became increasingly rare. One night, after a particularly successful show, Michael found Sophia in the back of the cafe, hunched over a pile of paperwork. "Hey," he said softly, massaging her tense shoulders. "You need to rest a little." Sophia sighed, leaning back into him. "I know. It's just... there's so much to do. I don't want to disappoint your John or you." Michael turned her gently, his eyes meeting hers. "Sophia, you could never disappoint us. But you need to take care of yourself too. This place, our dream, none of it is worth it if you're not well." Michael's words struck Sophia deeply. She realized that in her pursuit of success and recognition, she was at risk of losing sight of what truly mattered. That night they made a decision together. They would hire more staff, delegate responsibilities, and most importantly set aside time for each other, away from the demands of the cafe. The following weeks brought a new balance to Sophia's life. With a trusted team taking on more responsibilities, she could finally breathe. Sunday walks in the park with Michael became sacred, as did quiet dinners at home, far from the bustle of the cafe. John, observing the transformation, couldn't have been prouder. "You've found balance, my dear," he told Sophia one afternoon, "between work and love, between dreams and reality. That's what makes a fulfilling life." Sophia smiled, feeling deep gratitude. Looking around, Aroma Cafe, now full of life and music, she felt she had finally found her place in the world. It wasn't just the cafe or her relationship with Michael, but the combination of it all, the challenges overcome, the dreams realized, and the love that permeated every aspect of her life. That evening, as Michael played on stage and the aroma of coffee filled the air, Sophia allowed herself a moment of reflection. From the insecure orphan girl to the strong, accomplished woman she had become, her journey had been marked by highs and lows, love and loss, challenges and triumphs. And as she watched the smiling faces of the customers, listening to the music, echoing through the cafe, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The future, with all its uncertainties and possibilities, no longer frightened her. She was ready to embrace it one day at a time, with an open heart and a soul full of hope. The success of Aroma Cafe continued to grow, attracting not only locals but also tourists and coffee enthusiasts from all over Chicago. Sophia, now 25, had become a respected figure in the local business community, often invited to speak about young entrepreneurship. One quiet morning, as Sophia was organizing the month's accounts, her phone buzzed with an unusual notification. It was an email from a genealogical search service she had hired months ago, on a whim of curiosity about her origins. With a racing heart, she opened the message. The words on the screen made her world spin. They had found a possible relative, An aunt who lived in the countryside of Lone Mountain. Sophia froze, a mix of emotions overwhelming her. After years of believing she was completely alone in the world, the idea of having family was both thrilling and terrifying. Michael, who had arrived for the evening rehearsal, immediately noticed something was wrong. "Sophia, what happened?" With a trembling voice, she shared the news. Michael held her tight, offering the silent support she so desperately needed in that moment. "What do you want to do?" he asked softly. Sophia took a deep breath. I think I need to go there. Find out if it's true. Meet this person who might be my family." In the days that followed, Sophia found herself torn between the excitement of discovering her roots and the fear of the unknown. Her John, ever wise, advised her, "My dear, sometimes we need to look back to know where we're going. Go uncover your roots. The cafe will be here waiting for you." With Michael's support and John's blessing, Sophia embarked on a journey to the countryside of Minas Gerais. The small town of Lone Mountain, with its cobblestone streets and colonial houses, looked like something out of a postcard. Following the details from the email, Sophia arrived at a modest house on the outskirts of town. With her heart in her throat, she knocked on the door. A gray-haired woman with kind eyes answered. For a moment they stood in silence, studying each other. Then the woman spoke, her voice choked with emotion. You look just like my sister." The hours that followed were an emotional roller coaster. Antonia, Sophia's aunt, told the story of her younger sister, who had left for Chicago in search of a better life, pregnant and alone. But fate had been cruel, and she passed away during childbirth, leaving behind an orphaned baby. "We searched for you for years," Antonia said, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. "But the system, it was so complicated. Eventually we lost hope." Sophia cried, releasing years of loneliness and unanswered questions. Finally, she had answers about where she came from, about who she was. The days in the small town were filled with discoveries and reconnections. Sophia met cousins, heard stories about her mother, and for the first time saw photos of her parents. It was as if a missing piece of herself had finally fallen into place. But as the days passed, Sophia felt a growing restlessness. She loved the peace of the small town and the newfound connection with her family. But she missed the buzz of Aroma Cafe, the music-filled nights with Michael, and the vibrant energy of Chicago. One afternoon, sitting on the porch with Antonia, Sophia voiced her dilemma. "Auntie, I love being here, getting to know you all, but—" Antonia smiled knowingly. "But Chicago is your home now, isn't it?" Sophia nodded, feeling guilty. Antonia took her hands, looking into her eyes. "My dear, finding your roots doesn't mean you have to stay tied to them. You've built a beautiful life there. You have a man who loves you, a thriving business, dreams to fulfill, we understand." Antonia's words brought immense relief to Sophia. She realized it was possible to honor her origins without giving up the future she had built. Upon returning to Chicago, Sophia felt transformed. The weight of uncertainty about her past had lifted, replaced by a sense of belonging that went beyond blood ties. Aroma Cafe welcomed her with open arms. Michael, her John, the staff, and even the regular customers noticed a new light in Sophia. She shared her story, and photos of her newly discovered family now adorned a special wall in the cafe. Inspired by her journey, Sophia decided to start a social project at the cafe, a mentorship program for orphaned youth, offering barista training and business management. It was her way of giving back, of creating opportunities for those who, like her, once needed a chance. The cafe's music nights took on new meaning. Michael, moved by Sophia's story, composed a song about roots and wings, about finding balance between honoring the past and embracing the future. The song became an anthem at Aroma Cafe, echoing not just Sophia's journey, but that of everyone who found a home away from home there. One night, after the cafe closed, Sophia and Michael walked hand in hand down Michigan Avenue. The city, lights shimmered, reflecting the bright future ahead of them. "You know," Sophia said, stopping to gaze at the city that had become her home, For so long I felt like I was floating, rootless. Now I understand that my roots aren't in a place but in the people I love, the experiences I've lived. Michael hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. And in the lives you touch every day, at the cafe, with your story, with your heart. Sophia smiled, feeling a deep peace. Her journey was far from over, but now she walked with the certainty of who she was and where she was going. The future, with all its challenges and possibilities, awaited her. And she was ready to embrace it, with strong roots and open wings, to fly. Aroma Cafe had become more than just a business. It was a symbol of hope and transformation. The mentorship program for orphaned youth, started by Sophia, was flourishing. Every semester, a new group of young dreamers full of determination walked through the cafe's doors, eager to learn and grow. One morning, as Sophia guided a young apprentice in the art of making the perfect cappuccino, the doorbell chimed. A man in a suit entered, his gaze scanning the space with interest. "Good morning," he said, approaching the counter. "I'm looking for the owner, Sophia." She introduced herself, intrigued. The man smiled, extending his hand. "Pleasure to meet you. I'm Richard Simmons from Flavor & Co. I've heard wonderful things about your cafe and the work you do here. I'd love to discuss a potential partnership." Sophia's heart raced. Flavor & Co. was one of the largest cafe chains in the country. A partnership could mean expansion beyond her wildest dreams. In the days that followed, Sophia found herself immersed in meetings and negotiations. The offer was tempting, opening branches of Aroma Cafe in other cities, while keeping the original concept of a cafe concert and the mentorship program. Michael was excited about the idea, seeing an opportunity to bring his music to a wider audience. Old John, though cautious, recognized the potential for growth. "Just don't forget what makes this place special, my dear," he advised, his wise eyes fixed on Sophia. The decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. Expanding would mean fulfilling bigger dreams and impacting more lives. But it would also bring enormous challenges and responsibilities. One night, after closing the cafe, Sophia went up to the building's rooftop, a place she often visited to think. The city stretched out before her, lights twinkling like earthly stars. Michael found her there, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What's on your mind?" Sophia sighed. "How everything has changed so fast. Just a few years ago I was a lost girl with no direction. Now, I have the chance to do something truly great." "And does that scare you?" Michael asked softly. "A little," she admitted. "What if I'm not up to it? What if, as we grow, we lose the essence of what made Aroma Cafe special?" Michael gently turned her to face him, looking into her eyes. "Sophia, you built something incredible from scratch. You transformed not just your life, but so many others. If anyone can make this work, it's you." Michael's words sparked a flicker of confidence in Sophia. She realized that the fear of failure couldn't stop her from embracing new opportunities. The next morning, Sophia gathered her team. With determination in her eyes, she announced, "We're expanding, but we'll do it our way. Every new Aroma Cafe will reflect the values we built here. We won't just be another coffee chain. We'll be a network of hope and opportunity." The months that followed were an emotional roller coaster of challenges. The first branch opened in Belo Horizonte, followed by another in Rio de Janeiro. Each new location carried the essence of the original Aroma Cafe, the unmistakable aroma of coffee, live music, nights, and most importantly, the youth mentorship program. Sophia found herself constantly traveling, torn between Chicago and the new branches. The distance from Michael and the original cafe was hard, but seeing the impact they were making in new communities filled her with pride. Yet rapid growth brought unexpected challenges. Maintaining quality across all locations proved Herculean. There were moments of doubt, nights when Sophia wondered if she'd made the right decision. It was during one of those doubtful nights that Sophia received an unexpected call. It was Antonia, her aunt. "My dear," Antonia's gentle voice came through the phone. "I've heard about your success. Your mother would be so proud." The words moved Sophia deeply. She remembered where she came from, all the hardships she'd overcome. "Thank you, Auntie," Sophia replied, tears in her eyes. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed by all of this. Remember, Sophia, Antonia said softly, you carry the strength of generations in your blood. Trust in that strength. The conversation with Antonia renewed Sophia's determination. She realized the challenges were part of growth, not insurmountable obstacles. With renewed energy, Sophia implemented changes. She created an intensive training program for managers, ensuring the essence of Aroma Cafe was preserved in every new location. She expanded the mentorship program, forming partnerships with local organizations in each city. Michael, always her pillar of support, began traveling with her, bringing music and joy to every new branch. Together, they transformed each Aroma Cafe into a hub of culture and hope. A year after the expansion began, Sophia was back on the rooftop of the building in Chicago, gazing at the city that had been the cradle of her dreams. Michael joined her, bringing 2 cups of their special coffee blend. Looking back, Sophia reflected, I never imagined we'd come this far. Michael smiled, handing her a cup. And we still have so much ahead. Are you ready? Sophia took a deep breath, savoring the familiar aroma of coffee. She thought of all the young lives being transformed, the communities impacted, the legacy they were building. I am, she answered with conviction. I'm ready for the next chapter. As the sun set over Chicago, Sophia and Michael toasted to the future. Aroma Cafe had become more than a business. It was a movement of change and hope. And Sophia, the orphaned girl who once dreamed of a place to call her own, now led that movement, inspiring others to dream and achieve. The path ahead would still bring challenges, but Sophia knew that with love, determination, and a good cup of coffee, any obstacle could be overcome. The success of Aroma Cafe continued to grow, with new branches opening in different cities across America. Sophia, now 28, found herself at the peak of her career as an entrepreneur. Her face appeared in business magazines, and she was often invited to speak about social entrepreneurship. Yet, with the business's exponential growth, Sophia found herself increasingly disconnected from the day-to-day operations of the original cafe in Chicago. The constant travel and endless meetings began to take their toll, not just on her health, but also on her relationship with Michael. One night, after returning from an especially exhausting trip to Brasilia, Sophia found Michael in the apartment. They shared, his expression serious and worried. Sophia, we need to talk, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. Sophia's heart tightened. She knew they had grown apart in recent months, but hearing those words filled her with fear. What is it, Michael? She asked, trying to stay calm. Michael let out a deep sigh. I got an invitation for an international tour. 6 months, traveling, through several countries in Europe. Sophia felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. 6 months, but what about us? What about the cafe? That's what we need to discuss, Michael replied, his eyes searching hers. Sophia, you've been so busy expanding Aroma Cafe that we barely see each other. Maybe this is the moment for both of us to follow our dreams separately. Michael's words hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. She knew they had drifted apart, but she never imagined it would come to considering a separation. Do you want to break up? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Michael stepped closer, holding her hands. That's not it. I love you, Sophia, but I also love my music. And you love Aroma Cafe. Maybe we need some time to rediscover who we are as individuals. The tears Sophia had been holding back finally escaped. Deep down, she knew Michael was right. They had both changed so much over the years, chasing their dreams with such intensity that at some point they had started walking parallel paths instead of converging ones. The days that followed were an emotional roller coaster. Sophia found herself torn between begging Michael to stay and understanding that they both needed this chance for personal growth. On the eve of Michael's departure, they had a long conversation on the building's terrace, the same place where they had so often shared dreams and plans for the future. This isn't goodbye, Michael said, wiping a tear from Sophia's face. It's a see you soon. 6 months will fly by. Sophia nodded, trying to smile through her tears. Promise you'll take care of yourself? "I promise," he replied, pulling her into a tight hug. "And you promise not to drown yourself in work?" Sophia laughed softly, nodding in agreement. They spent the rest of the night in each other's arms, reminiscing about happy moments and making promises for the future. The next morning, Sophia accompanied Michael to the airport. Their last kiss before he passed through security was bittersweet, filled with love, the ache of impending absence and a hint of uncertainty. On her way home, Sophia felt strangely empty. The apartment, once full of music and laughter, now felt too big, too quiet. She caught herself wandering through the rooms, touching Michael's instruments, missing him in every corner. It was her John who pulled her out of that melancholy state. Arriving unannounced at the apartment, he found Sophia curled up on the couch, staring blankly ahead. "Ah, my dear," he said gently, sitting beside her. "Love sometimes takes us down strange paths, doesn't it?" Sophia nodded, leaning into her old friend's shoulder. "What if he doesn't come back, John? What if we realize we're on paths too different to cross again?" John smiled, that wise smile that always soothed Sophia's heart. "True love, my child, doesn't chain. It sets free. If you two are meant to be together, you'll find your way back to each other." John's words planted a seed of hope in Sophia's heart. She realized that no matter what the future held for her and Michael, she needed to use this time to rediscover herself. In the weeks that followed, Sophia threw herself not just into work, but also into a journey of self-discovery. She started practicing yoga, revived her neglected reading habit, and, inspired by Michael, even began learning to play the guitar. Aroma Cafe continued to thrive, but Sophia made significant changes to her routine. She delegated more responsibilities, allowing herself to spend more time at the original cafe in Chicago. She reconnected with customers, with the young people in the mentorship program, and most importantly, with herself. The calls and messages with Michael, though less frequent, due to time zones and busy schedules, were precious moments. They shared their experiences, their personal growth, and above all, the longing they felt for each other. 3 months passed, and Sophia surprised herself by realizing just how much she had grown in that time. She felt more self-assured, more connected to her values and goals. The Aroma Cafe, though still central to her life, was no longer her sole source of identity. One quiet afternoon at the cafe, while Sophia was experimenting with a new coffee blend, her phone buzzed with a message from Michael. "I miss you. Every day. But I'm grateful for this time. I'm learning so much about myself, about my music, and about how important you are in my life. I can't wait to share all of this with you." Sophia smiled, feeling her heart warm. She realized that, paradoxically, the distance had brought them closer in a way they hadn't expected. They were growing individually, but also as a couple. Gazing out the cafe window, watching the bustle of the city she loved so much, Sophia felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. The future was still uncertain, but she was ready to embrace it, whatever the outcome. With a smile, she picked up the guitar she now kept at the cafe and began strumming the melody Michael had composed for her years ago. The music filled the space, bringing with it sweet memories and the promise of new chapters to come. The months passed like pages of a book, turned by the wind. Sophia found a new rhythm in her life, balancing the growth of Aroma Cafe with her personal development. Guitar lessons became an unexpected passion, and she began composing her own songs, channeling her emotions and experiences into gentle melodies. The cafe's mentorship program flourished even more under her renewed attention. Sophia launched a new project, an annual talent show for the young participants, giving them a platform to showcase their newly discovered skills, whether in coffee artistry, music, or other creative fields. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Michael was on his own journey of discovery. His messages and calls to Sophia were filled with stories of concerts in historic plazas, collaborations with local musicians, and moments of deep introspection. "Every place I visit, every song I play makes me think of you and the cafe," he wrote once. "It's like I'm carrying a little piece of home with me everywhere I go." As Michael's return drew closer, Sophia felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. They had both changed, grown. Would they still be compatible? Would the love they shared be strong enough to bridge the distance and their personal transformations? On the eve of Michael's return, Sophia couldn't sleep. She spent the night on the terrace of Aroma Cafe, strumming her guitar and watching the sunrise over Chicago. It was there as the city awoke that she had an epiphany. No matter what happened between her and Michael, Sophia realized she was at peace with herself. The fear of loneliness that once haunted her had faded away. She had learned to be complete on her own, and paradoxically that made her even more open to love. The reunion at the airport was charged with emotion. When Michael emerged from the arrivals gate, his eyes immediately met Sophia's. For a moment they stood still, absorbing each other's presence. Then, as if pulled by an invisible force, they ran into a tight embrace. "I missed you so much," Michael whispered, his voice choked. Sophia couldn't respond, tears flowing freely. In that hug, they felt that despite all the changes, the core of what they felt for each other remained intact. The following days were about reconnection. Sophia and Michael spent hours talking, sharing stories, fears, and dreams. They visited their favorite spots in the city, reminiscing about precious moments and creating new ones. One starry night, Michael took Sophia to a small park where they used to walk early in their relationship. There, under an old oak tree, he took out his guitar. "I wrote this song thinking of you, of us," he said softly, beginning to play. The melody was sweet and nostalgic, speaking of distance, growth, and a love that overcomes obstacles. Sophia felt her heart overflow with emotion. When the song ended, she picked up her own guitar, surprising Michael. "I have something for you too," she smiled, starting to play her own composition. Sophia's song was a response to Michael's, speaking of self-discovery, inner strength, and the joy of reunion. Their voices joined in the chorus, creating a harmony that seemed to symbolize their reconnection. That night, under the stars of Chicago, Sophia and Michael reaffirmed their love, not as a return to the past, but as a new beginning. They had changed, grown, but discovered that those changes had made them even stronger together. In the months that followed, Sophia and Michael found a new balance. Michael began performing regularly at Aroma Cafe, bringing to Chicago the musical influences he had absorbed in Europe. Sophia, in turn, began exploring the possibility of expanding the cafe's concept beyond America, inspired by Michael's experiences abroad. Aroma Cafe evolved once again, becoming not just a space for music and coffee, but a true cultural hub. Sophia introduced poetry nights, art exhibitions featuring young artists from the mentorship program, and even small theatrical performances. One quiet afternoon, as she watched the bustle in the cafe, Sophia reflected on her journey, from the insecure orphan girl to the confident, accomplished woman she had become. She looked at Michael, who was animatedly chatting with some customers, and felt a wave of gratitude. Her John, who now spent most of his time simply enjoying the cafe he had helped build, approached Sophia. "Are you happy, my dear?" "Hi," he asked, his eyes shining with the same affection as always. Sophia smiled, embracing her old friend. "More than ever, John. You know, I've learned that happiness isn't a destination, but a journey, and I'm loving every step of that journey." The sun set over Chicago, bathing Aroma Cafe in golden hues. Sophia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The future was full of possibilities, new challenges and adventures. But now she knew that no matter what came her way, she would face it all with courage, love, and of course a good cup of coffee. Time flew by, and Aroma Cafe celebrated its 10th anniversary. Sophia, now 30, looked back with a mix of nostalgia and pride. What had started as a small cafe in Chicago had grown into a national chain, with branches in several major cities across America. To mark the occasion, Sophia organized a grand event at the original cafe. She invited all the young people who had gone through the mentorship program over the years, many of whom were now successful entrepreneurs themselves. The party was an emotional celebration of music, coffee, and stories of resilience. Michael, who had become a renowned musician, gave a special performance, blending songs that told the story of Aroma Cafe with the personal journeys of the young people who had passed through its doors. In the middle of the celebration, Sophia stepped onto the small stage, her heart overflowing with emotion. 10 years ago, I was just a lost girl with no family and no direction, she began, her voice trembling slightly. This cafe, and all the wonderful people I've met here, gave me so much more than a job. They gave me a home, a family, a purpose. She paused, looking at John, who smiled proudly from the corner of the room. But the true success of Aroma Cafe isn't in the numbers, the branches, or the awards we've won. It's in each of you, she continued, gesturing to the audience filled with familiar faces. In every dream realized, in every life transformed. You are the true legacy of Aroma Cafe. Sophia's words were met with heartfelt applause. Many in the crowd had tears in their eyes, remembering their own journeys of overcoming adversity. After the party, when the last guest had left and the cafe was quiet, Sophia and Michael sat at a corner table, as they had done so many times over. The years. So what's next? Michael asked, holding Sophia's hand. What's the next chapter? Sophia smiled, a spark of excitement in her eyes. I've been thinking, what if we expanded Aroma Cafe internationally? Michael raised an eyebrow, intrigued. How so? Remember all those wonderful stories you told me about cafes in Europe? What if we created a cultural exchange, bring a bit of America to the world, and bring a bit of the world back here? The idea caught fire quickly. In the following months, Sophia and Michael worked tirelessly on the project. They established partnerships with cafes in Italy, France, and Portugal, creating an exchange program for baristas and musicians. The first international Aroma Cafe opened in Lisbon, maintaining the essence of the original American cafe but incorporating elements of the local culture. It was an instant success, attracting both Portuguese locals and curious tourists eager to experience the unique fusion of flavors and sounds. As the business continued to grow and evolve, Sophia and Michael faced a new personal challenge, the decision to start a family. After much reflection and planning, they chose to adopt. The adoption process was long and at times emotionally draining. But when they finally met Luna, a 5-year-old girl with bright eyes and an infectious smile, they knew she was the missing piece in their lives. Adjusting to parenthood was a new adventure for Sophia and Michael. They learned to balance the demands of Aroma Cafe with their daughter's needs, creating a loving and stimulating environment for Luna to grow up in. The cafe became Luna's favorite playground. She loved interacting with customers, helping make coffee under careful supervision, and dancing to the live music. Sophia saw so much of herself in her daughter, the same curiosity, the same determination. One day, as she watched Luna playing with some of the kids from the mentorship program, Sophia felt a wave of emotion wash over her. John, who was sitting nearby, noticed her expression. "What is it, my dear?" he asked gently. Sophia smiled, wiping away a tear. "I'm just thinking about how life comes full circle, John. Not too long ago, I was a lost orphan. Now, I have a family, a thriving business, and the chance to give Luna everything I didn't have as a child." John nodded, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "And that's why Aroma Cafe is so special, Sophia. It's not just about coffee or music. It's about second chances, about creating a place where everyone can feel at home." The old friend's words resonated deeply with Sophia. She realized that Aroma Cafe had become much more than a business. It was a legacy of love, hope, and transformation. As the sun set over Chicago, bathing the cafe in golden light, Sophia embraced Luna and Michael. The future was full of exciting possibilities, new international branches, expanded social projects, and the challenges and joys of raising a daughter. But amid all these changes and growth, one thing remained constant: the heart of Aroma Cafe, a place where dreams were nurtured, lives were transformed, and where everyone could find a little piece of home no matter where they came from. 20 years had passed since Sophia first stepped into Aroma Cafe. Now at 40, She looked back with a mix of gratitude and awe at the journey she had taken. Aroma Cafe had become an international institution with branches in various countries, each maintaining the original essence of warmth and transformation. The mentorship program, started so many years ago, had impacted thousands of young people around the world. On a sunny Sunday morning, Sophia arrived at the original cafe in Chicago for a special occasion. It was the day to bid farewell to her, John, who after decades of dedication to the establishment had decided to retire for good. The cafe was packed, familiar and new faces mingled, long-time customers, young people who had gone through the mentorship program, seasoned employees and enthusiastic newcomers. Michael, now a renowned music producer, was on the small stage, tuning his guitar for a special performance. Luna, now 15, helped organize the event. Sophia couldn't help but smile as she watched her daughter confidently interacting with customers and staff. She had inherited not only a love for coffee, but also a passion for helping others. When her John entered the cafe, he was greeted with an emotional ovation. The old man, now with completely white hair but the same bright, wise eyes, seemed moved by the reception. Sophia took the stage, her heart overflowing with emotion. 20 years ago, she began, her voice slightly trembling, I was a lost and frightened girl with no idea what the future held. It was here in this cafe that I found not just a job but a home, a family, and a purpose. She paused, looking directly at her John. And all of this incredible journey began with one man, a man who saw potential in a scared girl and gave her a chance. John, you didn't just give me a job, you gave me a life. Tears streamed freely down John's face as he smiled with paternal pride. Aroma Cafe, Sophia continued, isn't just about coffee or music. It's about connections, about transforming lives, about giving second chances. And today, as we say goodbye to John as our official manager, we celebrate not an ending, but the continuation of a legacy. Sophia then announced that, in honor of John, the mentorship program would be expanded, offering college scholarships to underprivileged youth. The celebration continued late into the night, with music, shared stories, and of course, plenty of coffee. In a quiet moment, Sophia found her John sitting in a peaceful corner of the cafe. How do you feel? She asked, sitting beside him. Her John smiled, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Fulfilled, my dear. Seeing all this, everything you've built, I feel like I've fulfilled my purpose in this life. Sophia took her old friend's hand, emotion rising in her throat. You've changed so many lives, John, mine most of all. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the celebration around them. Michael played a soft melody on stage. Luna served coffee to the guests with a radiant smile. And throughout the cafe, laughter and lively conversations echoed. You know, John finally said, when I opened this cafe so many years ago, I never imagined it would become all this. But looking at you, at Luna, at all these young people, I see that Aroma Cafe goes far beyond these walls. It lives in every life it's touched. Sophia nodded, feeling a deep sense of continuity. And it will keep touching lives, John. I promise I'll take care of this legacy. As the night wore on, Sophia reflected on her journey, from the orphaned girl to the successful entrepreneur, mother and mentor. Every challenge, every obstacle overcome had brought her here. Watching Luna, who was now chatting animatedly with some of the young people from the mentorship program, Sophia saw the future. Her daughter already showed a desire to follow in her footsteps, to continue the work started so many years ago. The cycle of life went on. New challenges would come, new stories would be written at the tables of Aroma Cafe. But the heart of the place, the spirit of welcome and transformation, would remain the same. When the last guest had left and the cafe grew quiet, Sophia, Michael and Luna joined John for one last cup of coffee that night. Sitting there at the same table where it all began 20 years ago, they raised a toast. To Aroma Cafe, John proposed, lifting his cup. To the home we found, Michael added. To the lives transformed, Luna smiled. Sophia looked at her, family at the cafe that had become the center of her life, and felt a deep peace. To dreams fulfilled, she said softly, and to those still to come. The cups clinked softly, the rich aroma of coffee filling the air. Outside, Chicago kept up its frantic pace, but there, in that little oasis of scent and affection, time seemed to pause, celebrating not just the past, but the endless possibilities of the future. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the journey of Sophia Aroma Cafe and all the characters who crossed her path has touched your hearts. This story reminds us that often, our greatest transformations begin in the most unexpected places, perhaps even in a simple cup of coffee. If this narrative resonated with you, don't hesitate to share it. Leave a like, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments which moment in the story touched your heart the most. Is there a Sophia, a Michael, or a John in your life? Remember, each day is an opportunity to write a new chapter in our own stories. Who knows, your next cup of coffee might just be the start of an incredible journey. Until the next story where new adventures, emotions, and transformations await, thank you for joining us on this aromatic journey of life and love.